Hi, it's Mr. Kaiser. Welcome back to Kaiser World. Today we're going to show you how to make a fidget spinner on OnShape, the online free CAD software. Now, if you have Fusion 360 or something like that, the steps are pretty much the same, just the buttons are kind of in different places. We're going to use, this is our model. I found this online. It looked really cool. It reminded me of a ninja star, and I always wanted to be a ninja, so now I can be a ninja and make my own ninja fidget spinner. I'm going to change a few of the dimensions. This 28 millimeter hole, I'm going to change it to 22 millimeter to fit a 608 standard bearing that fidget spinners use. But the rest of the dimensions I'll pretty much use. So let's get started. Well, I'll open up a brand new OnShape right here. And the key to making any 3D model is kind of deciding how you're going to break it down into pieces. So going back to my design here, I think I'm going to make this center circle first with the hole. Then I'm going to make one of the little spiky things that stick out, and then I'm going to copy it around to make the rest. Okay? So, and then I might add some other features later to make it look a little better. Let's do this circular one. It's a 40 millimeter diameter circle with, I'll do a 22 millimeter hole for the bearing to fit inside. I'm going to do a sketch. Oh, before I do a sketch, always check your units. So I changed my default units using the OnShape preferences, but you should always check your workspace units. Make sure you're in millimeters, and 0.1 is good enough for accuracy. I'm going to create my sketch on the top plane, and then I'm going to click top plane, so I'm looking straight down on it, zoom in a little bit. I like to always show constraints, so I clicked on the show constraints over here. I'm going to pick the circle in the sketch tools and make a circle that's about 40, and then make another circle that's about 22. That one wasn't centered, but don't worry, I can fix that later. So now that I got those two circles, let's dimension it. So I can dimension this one to be 40 millimeters. And I'm going to use the dimension tool to dimension the other one to be 22 millimeters. And this one's still blue because it didn't see that I wanted it to center it. That's not a problem. Hit escape, and I can move this blue one so it locks to the origin. And now this shows me it's constrained on the origin. Now they're both black, and black is beautiful. That's how we like it. It's grayed out. That means it's a continuous contour. And we can do the extrude. Now I'm going to make my fidget spinner a depth of 7 because that's about the size of my 608 bearings that are going to be used. So I'll do 7 millimeters and check, and I can look at it in 3D, and that looks good. Okay. Now that I got my center part, I'm going to look and make one of these little edges here, these little spikes. So I'm going to do another sketch. I'm just going to do half of it, and I'm going to use the mirror tool in this sketch. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'll do this half, and we're going to use the measurements all around here to help us recreate this. And if you look at this line, it looks like it's radial, and it goes from the center to here, and that's going to help me in terms of the angles of how to do these. All right. So let's go and create our new sketch. I'm going to look at the top again, and I'm going to select the top and create a new sketch on the top plane. And I'm going to draw it right here. So what I like to do is like to freehand it first, kind of, just to see if I get the general shape. So I'm going to freehand one side of this spike. It goes somewhere on this circle. It goes up a little bit, and then it goes down to somewhere like that. Hit escape to end my line command. And so it's going to look something like that, but obviously it's blue. It's not constrained yet. We have to tell it a few things, put some measurements in. So one of the things I noticed on the measurement is how far away this point is from the center. And if we look at our measurements, we have this outside circle on our 2D drawing, which is a diameter of 146. Half of that is going to be 73. So it looks like from this point to the center of my fidget spinner is 73. Oh, it's right here. They told it to us down here too. So 73 is that distance. Now I can go and do my dimensions. I'm going to go from this point to the center and change it to be 73. Okay, so got the end point there. Now another thing I noticed is this line is supposed to attach radially to that point. Now there's not a constraint for that. I was looking for a collinear, and I didn't see a collinear that I could use. But what I did see is normal, so I can use that. So normal is the same as kind of like perpendicular, but for a circle. So I want this, if this line is going from the radius on, that means it must be attached to the circle at a normal or at a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to use normal and say, hey, I want this line and this circle to be normal to each other, and that lock that one down. Now it's still not black for a couple reasons. One, this angle. So it doesn't know where this point is. How angled is this? You know, so is it barely an angle? Is it a steeper angle? So let's see if we can find the angle. And going here, I notice, oh, there's 15, it's a 15-degree angle from this edge to the horizontal. So we can do, use our dimension tool. I'll select this line first and then that line, and it lets me do an angle. So I'm going to say, well, that should be exactly 15. Good. Now it's still not black. Remember when it's blue, it's not fully constrained. We boo for blue. Boo, boo, boo for blue. All right, so now we're going to try and see if we can get this blue to be black. I'm going to try to grab the blue and see what the problem is, or grab this point and see what the problem is. It doesn't know. It knows this line, but it doesn't know where to transition from this angle to this angle. So let's see if the drawing shows us. Well, it looks like the drawing says that there's this circle that goes around here that's a radius of 36. So that means from this point to the center is 36. So we can add that dimension. Let's try to do that. We're going to go from dimension from this point to that point, and make sure it's a radial dimension like that, not up and down like this. We have to do angled like that and type in 36. And now we have it fully constrained, but it's only half of our spike, so we need to add the next half of the spike, the bottom half. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the mirror tool up here in my sketch tools. When I select the mirror, it says first select a mirror line. I want to mirror around this line, then select entities to be mirrored. Well, I want to mirror that line and that line. And since I mirrored it, they're fully constrained because it's using these constraints, and just copy them over again. And that looks good. Now, this is not a complete contour yet. If I try to finish this sketch and do a extrude, it's not going to let me select this spike because it's open here. We didn't close it. So Fusion automatically closes it, but OnShape does not. So I'm going to exit this extrude and go back to my sketch. I'm going to right click over the sketch to go back into sketch mode. Now I'm editing the sketch. So I have to add this little curved line. So I can use another feature that both OnShape and Fusion have. It is to convert entities into sketches. So this is not part of my sketch, this circle. It's from the extrusion that we did earlier. But what I can do is I can select a tool up here which lets us project or convert. So we're going to project and convert this circle. So now it added this circle to my sketch. It's still black. It's hard to see, but it is added. But it's the whole circle. I don't want the whole circle. I just want this little snippet right here. So I'll use the scissor tool to trim. I don't want to trim this part. I want to keep that part. I want to trim this outside part. So I'll trim that. And now it's grayed out. That's telling us this is a complete enclosed shape that I can extrude. So I can say I'm done with that sketch, and now I can extrude. What do I want to extrude? Which face? Well, I want to extrude sketch 2, so I'll select sketch 2. And then I'll do in 3D. How far do I want to extrude it? Well, I could type in 7 again, and that would give you exactly the same height as the earlier extrusion. But show you some new other tricks you can do. You can go up to a face. So now I can select, hey, go up to this. That way if I change this to be more than 7 later, this will automatically change. So that's always good to do, is to link things like that to make it easier to change everything at once if you decided 7 is too thick or too thin later on. This looks good. I'm going to select done. So I have my first little spiky part of my fidget spinner. Now I want to add a bunch more. So if I look back at the drawing, it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equally spaced around this circle. And one way you can think of it is like if you spin them around this axis that's coming straight out of the center of the fidget spinner. So Fusion will automatically have axes where the 3 planes show up, probably somewhere in this menu. But if Fusion doesn't, or OnShape doesn't for sure, you can add your own axes. So we're going to do that next. So I'm going to pick maybe the front plane. So I'm going to go to the front. And if you right click on the front plane and go view normal to, it'll flip it around so you can see it from the front. And I'm going to create a new sketch. And for this sketch, I'm just going to draw a straight line up from that origin straight up. And I'm going to do what's called a construction line. So now that's highlighted, which means I'm drawing construction lines. I'm going to click a line, click here once, and then you see how it's like the dash line with big dashes and little dashes? That's called a construction line. You're not actually going to create, it's not part of your model. It's just to help you draw what you need to draw, or help you model what you need to model. So I'm going to have it go, it doesn't really matter how far it goes up. It's not going to show up on most things. I have escape, so now I have this axis, so that's good. And then I'll have this axis that's going straight up. And now I can do my 6 repeats. So I'm going to go to the pattern. And I don't want a linear pattern, I want a circular pattern. So I'm going to do a circular pattern. And this is going to pop up. Now you have to change something. This is a part pattern. We want to change it to feature pattern because we're going to pattern some of the features. So what do we want to pattern? We want to pattern the extrude to, which is this piece that stuck out. And the axis that we want to pattern is we're going to use this axis right here. And then how many? Well, it defaults to 4 and 360. But we want more than that. So I'm going to type in 6. And that's 6. Now the red means there's some kind of error. It says it could not regenerate. Let's look at the error. If I put my mouse over the red, it's a circular pattern cannot regenerate properly. What? Why not? Well, let's just try selecting apply per instance option. Now Fusion doesn't have this. They have a bunch of other options. But we're going to try this. Apply per instance, just like they told us. And look, it fixed it. It's no longer red. It looks like it's going to be able to create. Now we could decide, you know what? I want to change my design a little bit. I want to try and do more spikes. You can do that. Now you have 8. Okay. You can do 50 if you want, but you're going to have to wait for the computer to regenerate. It's going to take a while. Okay. They're 50. That doesn't look that great. Let's go. I'll go back to 6 just for this purposes of this video. And when you're done, you can say, hey, that looks good. So here's my fidget spinner. It looks great. I love it. But I noticed something, that if I actually laser cut this out of wood and use this as a fidget spinner, I'm going to have some cracking problems at these sharp corners, these cracks. So I wish I had designed these to be a little bit curvy instead of sharp edges. But never fear, Fusion and OnShape let you go back and change anything and without starting over. So I'm going to do what's called a fillet on the corner, and I'm going to do it on only one of them and use my circular pattern to make the rest. The problem is I don't know which one of these were the original. Where do I make my fillets? I can take this bar right here, like the timeline bar, and go back in time. I'll go back before I did the circular pattern. Whoops, that's the wrong bar. This bar. And move it, my timeline, before the circular pattern. And now I'm here in the timeline when there was only one. And before I did my circular pattern, I want to go and add a round. So I'm going to do a fillet. Zoom in. Hey, 5 millimeters. Let's see if that looks good. I'm going to click on that edge. Hey, that looks pretty good. I like 5. And now I'll click on this other edge. So I have 5 here too. Yeah, that looks really good too. I like 5 and 5 there. I'm going to say good. Okay. So this looks great. I like that curvy edge now. Now if I go back and change my rollback bar to the end, I will see that it curved that one, but it didn't curve all of them. And the reason why is we still had the original circular pattern, which only copied one feature, which was the spike. It didn't copy the fillet feature. Not a problem. We can right-click on circular pattern and go to edit, but I want to edit that pattern. And when it says features to pattern, I can add now the fillet. So now it's copying the extrude and the fillet. And as you see, they're all filleted now. And I'll check OK. And now we got our nice throwing star, ninja star, fidget spinner. And if you want to actually see if your bearing will fit, you can put in your bearing. So I'm going to show you that real quick, how to put in your bearing. And to put in your bearing, well, let's change the color real quick too. You can change the color of your part by right-clicking and saying Edit Appearance. And you can change it to a different color. Let's say I want to change it to green. I can change it to green and say, yeah, that's good. So that's my new color. And now I'm going to go down here to my bottom menu, which lets us go to, pull this up a little bit so you can see, assemblies. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to assemble this with the bearing. So I'm going to click on assembly. And right now there's nothing in the assembly, so I want to insert. What do I want to insert? Well, I'm going to insert my part 1, which is this fidget spinner that's green that I made. So I'm going to attach that. And then I'm going to say, okay, that looks good, but I want to add something else. I want to add a bearing. So we don't have to draw a bearing. Probably someone in OnShape's world has already drawn a bearing. So you can go to looking for, instead of current documents you're working on, you can look other documents. You can search public, all the documents, millions of documents. I'll just type in 608. That's the part number of a bearing, and see if anyone else has made a 608 bearing so I don't have to spend time modeling it. And I'll do a search real quick. And now it's searching through the entire database for 608. A lot of people done 608. I like the way this one looked because it has like the race and everything. There's a bunch of other ones you can look for. I'm just going to grab this one. So I'm going to take this one, click on the 608 bearing, and there I'm just going to place it here for now and say, okay, good. So I got my bearing and I got my fidget spinner. Now we got to do what's the mate for assembly. So there's a lot of different assembly mates in OnShape, and actually OnShape is a lot easier than most software in terms of mating, but it's still a learning process. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to show you one that we're going to use, and we're going to use, I believe there's a cylinder one here too. Yes, cylindrical mate, because that's a cylinder. It's going to go inside that cylinder. So I'll try the cylindrical mate, and it says mate connectors. So I'm going to, say I want this to be mated with that. Boom, it fitted in, and it's in. That's all we got to do. Connect the two circles, and we've mated it. And it says it did not generate properly. Make sure the mate needs 2 mate connectors. So I can try again and see if that surface can leave that surface, and whoops, and I think I got it. I did too much, but I got the 2 to mate properly. And if you go back to your part studio, you can even change something and the assembly will automatically change. So if I went to my circular pattern and I edit it and I changed it to be 8 instead of 6, and it changes my throwing star to that, if I go back to my assembly, it'll automatically regenerate and also make it 8. So they're linked. And if you have time, you can also work on drawings. So you can make part drawings that show your front and top view and have all your dimensions and shows an ISO and scale. And that's pretty easy to do in OnShape as well. When you're creating a drawing, I can go back to the part studio. If I wanted to create a drawing for this, you can so if you go down to where it says part on your part menu and right click on it, you can say create drawing of part 1. And if you do that, make sure you pick a ANSI with millimeters. So ANSI is our style of projection. Don't pick ISO, pick ANSI, and then you get the right correct views. You can do no views and add your own views, or start off with 4 views and delete the ones you want. I will just select no views and click OK, and then it will create the drawing for you. It's loading up, and you can choose what view you want first. I want a front view. I want it to be 1:1, so I'm going to click 1:1. I'm going to put my 1:1 view there, and then my top view is going to be here. Perfect. And if I want another, like an ISO view, you can do an ISO view like that. And if you want to change the properties of the ISO view, you can just hit escape to get out of the views and then go to view properties. So I think you can double click as well and say, hey, this is isometric. I don't want it to be so big. I want it to be maybe 1:3, and then I can move it. Say that sounds good, and I can move it in here just in the corner so people can see what it looks like. Everything else is 1:1, and then you can use the dimensioning tools to add your dimensions and so forth. Well, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching Kaiser World and seeing how you can make cool fidget spinners using OnShapes. Take care, everybody.